All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is John Sears. I'm the Lean Coordinator for Vermont Department of Environmental Conservation. And I want to thank you all for joining me this morning for the fifth in our Lean Leadership Series, Huddle Up, Lean Meeting Principles. So we're going to be talking a little bit about what a Lean meeting is and what it can be. In particular, we're going to be talking about huddles. And if you don't know what a huddle is, that's all right. That's why you're here. Okay. So why are we talking about meetings at all? So I've done a previous survey within the Department of Environmental Conservation. And so DEC alone, which is about 300 staff, collectively spends about 2,000 hours per week in meetings. So it's a huge investment of our time. It's where we spend a lot of effort. Some of us have jobs that take a significant portion of that 2,000 hours a week. Some of us have jobs that take significantly less than that. But although the average employee spends 6.7 hours per week in meetings, managers and supervisors average 10.3, or about 25% of the week, a little bit more, in meetings. And because we are in meetings so much, and because managers and supervisors are in meetings more than other staff, it's really important to get the most out of those meetings and to understand how much time we individually spend in meetings. So you might have an idea of how much time you spend in meetings, but when we talk about lean or continuous improvement, it's really important to have some hard and fast numbers. So there's a really easy way to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this link in the chat, although you can see it right here. If you are on Office 365, there's a very convenient tool for tracking how much you're in meetings. So go ahead and click that link that I just dropped in the chat. And right down here, you'll see what percent of your meetings, what percent of your week is taken up with meetings. So if a couple of you can go ahead and click that link and go ahead and tell me either verbally or in the chat, what percent do you see there as far as percent meetings? I'm curious because we have a lot of leaders in this meeting. I think we have a couple of people. Well, everyone that I see here is a manager or supervisor, so I'm really curious. All right, got a 22%, 16, 38. David, that does not surprise me. All right. 45, Emily, yep. 28%. Okay. So Joanna, only 49%. I'm surprised. That seems a little low.
That was this week's results. When I just got my analytics, so I went with this week's results.
Okay. Awesome. 43%. Yeah. So, it's not abnormal to end up with very high percentage of this. And so because we're spending so much time in these meetings, we want to get the most out of them. And also, what are some ways that we can take a look at maybe spending a little less time in meetings and focus on what's the important things that we get out of meetings that we don't want to lose out on? All right. So when we talk about a lean meeting, it has three critical ingredients, and those are having a set of simple goals, having deliverables, so something that's got to come out of that meeting, and efficient facilitation. And right in the center of that, where you have all three of those ingredients, are huddles. And if you've never heard of a huddle before, it's an idea that comes out of a lot of lean principles, and it is very simply short, frequent, impactful meetings. And they're a little bit different from typical meetings you have. A lot of the meetings we have as leaders and managers are update meetings where you want to know what's going on with a thing or a set of things, or meeting up with your team and saying, how are you doing on things? Huddles change it up because a lot of times with those standing meetings, those reoccurring meetings, they can get bogged down in what we're doing now instead of a variety of areas. So these are the core elements of a huddle. You review a previous period's performance. So it requires a little bit of data collection to know how well your team is performing and how well they performed in the previous week. So going over that very quickly, identifying performance problems like defects and process issues, So it's a check-in on the state of the process. For any problems, you can identify a responsible person or teams, not for who's responsible for causing the problem, but who's responsible for engaging in problem solving and figuring out a solution to that problem, ideally using lean or some other continuous improvement elements. And when you do discuss statuses, it's to discuss the problem solving efforts from previous weeks. But you're not going to do any problem solving in this meeting. This meeting is not where that core work happens, because you have a team of empowered individuals who can carry on successfully and investigate and problem solve. These are short meetings. We're talking 10, 15, 20 minutes, half an hour at the most, depending on the size of your team. But it's about getting down to brass tacks and figuring out, are things flowing efficiently? And if not, why not? And you can discuss any staffing or plans for the week. So if anything is going to come up, if anything is going to be directly relevant, if you're doing these weekly. And then you can identify any improvement ideas submitted. So throughout the week, if people have improvement ideas, it really puts the continuous in continuous improvement, because it has a continual focus on continuous improvement. It puts what we're doing in the background, the trust on individuals, and it says, if there are challenges, if there are hurdles, let's work together and let's overcome them. And that's core to what's going on with Huddles. So they're quick, they are frequent, and they are impactful. And you're saying, okay, John, that sounds great. We're doing Huddles now. But hold on just a second. All right. Because you can't just jump right into Huddles, because there are a couple things that need to be in place before you can have successful Huddles. And there are 4 key things that I've identified that really have to be in place for Huddles to start replacing things like weekly stand-up meetings or staff meetings or things along those lines. And those things do still have their place, but the idea is that Huddles can replace the vast majority of them. And so you're spending less time in those reoccurring meetings because folks are working. It's just a matter of finding the challenges and hurdles that they're facing. So what do you need in order for a huddle to function? You need visual management. So in our last training, we talked about visual management and especially the power of a Kanban board. Visual management serves as the focus for these huddles. Everyone is zeroed in on it. We know what the status of all the projects are because we've all kept our visual management systems up to date. We know how we're doing from a performance perspective. We know what the status of all the projects are because everyone's updating it and everyone can look at any given time to see what the status of a project is. So we can focus on the things that matter, like what are the challenges, what are the hurdles, and what do we need to overcome them. One of the things I listed as part of a huddle is that you can assign challenges or problem solving to staff or other individuals because they are well versed in continuous improvement. Now, if you're looking for a place to start there, I would recommend going through all my personal trainings. But if you're a state employee, CI 101 is a great place to start for everybody. It's a half an hour. It's part of the state's learning management system. It's very easy to find and use. If you want a link to that, I'm happy to send it to you. It is a really great first place to start for, I think, everyone, regardless of where your staff are at in their careers. It's just a half an hour commitment, and if it speaks to them at a deeper level, there are much more training opportunities ahead. There's 102 and 103, both half-day courses. You could take one or both that focus on problem solving and using data. You can proceed on to get your white belt by learning about the A3 process and true lean problem solving. And if people are really passionate about it, getting your green belt, becoming a facilitator or a lean practitioner, and really mastering those tools and becoming a contributing member to the Greenbelt Corps, who I think are some of the best people in the state and are great experts that we're going to be talking a little bit more about as we continue talking. You have to have empowered staff that you trust. And that's not a guarantee. right? But it's something that's worth working on through coaching, through development, and ultimately you have to be able to work together and have that trust, because when we have these big long meetings where we talk about what's happening, it's almost like, I don't know if I can trust you to do the work that you've been set out to do, or I need you to go in and reliably update the Kanban board so we can tell where projects are. It requires that two-way street, that trust, in order to be successful. And finally, it requires a vision and the data that supports that vision. So when we talk about what are we doing in these huddles, is we are tracking our progress towards a target condition. And that means we have to have a target condition, and we have to know if we're approaching that target condition. And that's part of continuous improvement, is improving in what way, towards what goal. And I think that's important. And we're going to be talking a lot more about that in future trainings when we're talking about results-based accountability and strategic planning. So if you feel like you don't have a firm idea of what is a vision and how can you realize it, or what does data look like to measure our progress towards that vision, we're going to be talking a lot more about that in future trainings. So I've mentioned that I think huddles can be a really powerful tool, but not every meeting fits into the requirements of a huddle. And in fact, there are a lot of different types of lean work that fit really great as meetings that you can't wrap up in 15 minutes, right? And continuous improvement methodology provides a lot of tools to solve a lot of different kinds of challenges. I've listed out just a couple here, some of the key ones that Lean is really great at handling. And I sort of plotted them on a graph of preparation and time commitment. So what is the level of work that has to go in prior to a meeting in order to have a successful thing? That's your preparation. And what is your time commitment? So how much time do you actually have to spend in those meetings? So brainstorming can kind of come in at a really low level, although you can do certain levels of preparation in advance. You can do brainstorming really quick and really easy. There are a lot of really great brainstorming tools out there. Some of them are considered lean adjacent, but a lot of them aren't necessarily. In fact, some of my favorite ones are just separate from the entire ideology, but there's a lot of really great brainstorming that comes from generating ideas, not just providing an empty space and saying, here, fill it, but providing you some sort of resource to consume to create ideas. Lean is also really great at helping with decision making. Probably requires the most in the way of preparation because you need the important information that feeds into those decisions. But the actual meeting time that it consists of, depending on the complexity of those things, is fairly low, unless you are trying to also fit all of these things into your decision-making process, which is a mistake that people can often make. And when you systematically handle all these things before heading in the decision-making process, it can really make decision-making really fast and efficient. As we increase in time commitment, we're taking a look at root cause analysis. So figuring out why things happen instead of treating the symptoms, you want to treat the disease. We can talk about process analysis, so process mapping or SciPoc. So it might require some collection of data or various elements. And it requires sitting down and diligently mapping out the process at whatever level makes sense for the problem you're trying to solve. And then problem solving can widely range. It could really exist anywhere on this chart depending on the scale of the problem that you're trying to tackle. But all of these things require more than just a 15-minute meeting. So how can you make them more successful? So facilitation can make or break a successful meeting. And here in the state of Vermont, particularly in A&R, we're very lucky because we have a core of very talented, very capable green belts. And what that results in is a core of trained facilitators. So if you want staff that are focused on solving the problem that's at hand, or you are a manager, you are often, it feels like, tasked with managing the meeting, right? You oversee the team, so it makes sense that when you get into a meeting, you are the one running that meeting. But the question is do you need to run that meeting? As a manager, you probably have a lot of expertise that it feels like it's great to offer. And a lot of times that can lead to a conflict of interest or dominating a meeting, even if that's not your intention, just because you're facilitating the meeting, you're everyone's boss, and you have a lot of great ideas. And all those things can be true. But what that means is that there's really great opportunities that come from allowing someone else to facilitate. There's a couple of paths forward for that. So if you are in the state of Vermont, having a trained facilitator come and facilitate those meetings, that's a service that we can provide. And all you have to do is reach out to me and say, hey, I'd like a facilitator for this meeting. And we could take a look at what are the tools that you're using to do that. We have green belts that are trained in a lot of lean tools. Even if you're not or your team's not, they are experts and can lead you through those tools to arrive at a great place. So fishbone analysis, SWOT, or TOES, the second half of SWOT that we often neglect. Lotus Blossom is a great tool for brainstorming. We got a lot of people that are growing in their appreciation for the Lotus Blossom, as Emily Bird could tell you, or Caitlin Buchwald. Plus deltas are really simple, really straightforward tools for understanding what's working and what's not. There are a lot of really great, really simple tools that can help bring that meeting to the next level. And if you've got someone else facilitating, it allows you to focus on what you think and what you feel and offering that expertise in a way that doesn't conflict with being egalitarian and allowing everyone to participate in the meeting. So another leadership tip I want to offer here is that meetings provide a great opportunity to practice leadership, even if someone is not a leader, but you think that they could use more experience, either working with teams or being a better facilitator or being more confident. Facilitating meetings can be a great way to grow people, and having a rotating facilitation schedule for standing meetings, or handing over the reins for a particular meeting and just seeing how things go can be a great coaching opportunity. And I want to encourage people to let their teams grow and spread and develop themselves. And this is a really great opportunity to do that if you have people that you think have a lot of potential. So green belts or staff, if you feel like taking that leap. So there's one thing I want to talk about here, and I want to talk a little bit about teams too, and that's that breakouts and working sessions are extremely, extremely powerful. A lot of times when I have people come out of meetings, when we've had breakout sessions, they're always like, that was great. It felt so productive. And a lot of the reasons it feels that way is because of this axiom. The more people at our meeting, the less work gets done. And that just feels intrinsically true, right? If we have an idea and everyone offers their thoughts on an idea, it's going to take longer to get through that idea because everyone's offering their thoughts and counter thoughts and counter thoughts on that idea. Everyone else gets less time to talk, less time to offer their thoughts, less progress through those ideas. And what it means is breakout rooms can be extremely powerful because in an event where you have a lot of people that you want to include because you don't want to leave out important stakeholders, but you also have a lot of work to get done, breakouts can be extremely powerful. You get everyone on the same page and you set everyone forth with a task. And Microsoft Teams makes that really, really easy to do. It's easier now than it's ever been. So now all you have to do is find this icon in any meeting that you are a manager or that you are the coordinator of. Click that item. It'll allow you to create breakout rooms. You can select the number of breakout rooms you want to do. You can either automatically assign people to rooms, so it'll automatically take people and spread them out, or you can manually do it if you have identified facilitators for those breakout sessions. And then you can manage them. You can send messages to all of those people in those breakout rooms. You can pull them back in when the time is done. But the breakout rooms are where the work really gets done. And there's a lot of ways you can employ them. You can employ them as a everyone do the same thing. And then let's come back and sort of reconnect and see where our different conversations took us. We've been having a lot of really great conversations about diversity and equity, and breakout rooms are really powerful because a lot of times there are thoughts and feelings that people feel more comfortable talking about in smaller sessions. There are a lot of really complex and intricate ideas that might take a long time to explain. And when we come back together, it's fascinating hearing the different ways, the different combinations of people have taken the same starting point and branched out. Breakout rooms are also really powerful for tackling different sets of tasks. And this applies to whether you're doing it in teams online or in person. Breakout rooms are really powerful. We use them to have one group be working on an implementation plan while another group prepares a presentation, or it allows people to follow the areas that they are more interested in, or where they might have more expertise, or maybe you want to see how different people work together. And it's a great tool to put some different people in different rooms to get them bouncing off each other and see where those ideas end up. It's a really great experimentation and progress making tool. So even meetings with lots of people can be very productive if you properly utilize breakout rooms. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. And I wanted to leave a lot of time at the end for questions. So what are some questions you have about things that you've observed at meetings or challenges that you faced that you want to talk about? You can type it in the chat or raise your hand or just unmute and start talking. And if you don't have anything, I have some other cool stuff I can show you real quick if you're interested. All right, not seeing any hands, so I'll just talk to one extra point that I had here just in case. So when you're in an online environment, it's a little bit harder to get feedback on things than in a in-person meeting. So I really like multi-voting, for example. The way we handle multi-voting for decision-making purposes, multi-voting is you get multiple votes, maybe you get two, and it allows you to spread your votes out. If you like two ideas, or maybe you really, really like one idea, you can put your two votes there. It's really great and really easy, but you can only do that if you're in person. If you're online and you want to get the kind of multi-voting experience, there are tools that exist within the Office 365 suite that make that pretty easy. So there's two primary ways you can do it. So one is through Poly. Poly is an in-platform tool that allows you to issue an actual poll in a meeting. So you can do various things like do choices, open-ended, or ratings. You can do multiple votes, so you can actually do multi-voting in Poly, and it'll actually post it to the meeting. So it'll pop up right in the middle of the meeting, and it will pose folks with a question. Alternately, if you're not feeling confident with Poly and it's the kind of thing that you can prepare in advance because you wouldn't want to do this live, you can utilize Microsoft Forms, or if you're not on the Office 365 suite, Google Forms or any form software. And it's very easy to just pop a survey link in the chat and have people take a survey. So if you have a facilitator and co-facilitator, for example, the co-facilitator could be working on something like this through the results of a meeting and get a really quick vote on what ideas do we like. This is really great for strategic planning, for example. You might come up with dozens of ideas, but you can't implement 20 different strategies. So what are our favorites? What is the sense of the room? And it's really great for cataloging that. So that's all I had today. I'll pause one more minute to see if there are any questions, concerns. Otherwise, I think we'll go ahead and call it. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time today. If you have any questions that occur to you immediately after closing out this meeting, that's fine. You can go ahead and email me or send me a Teams message. It's once again been a pleasure to talk to you, and I'll see you all again in 2 weeks. I think I had to reschedule because of it was during a holiday. Caitlin, I see you have your hand up.
Sure. Yeah, I just have one quick question. So So some people who are really swamped by emails or unresponsive to emails, sometimes it's easier to schedule a meeting with them to ask like a quick question or get something quickly done, even though a meeting might not necessarily be required. How do you recommend approaching situations like that to cut down time in meetings, but also getting things from people that you need?
So by default, Outlook schedules meetings for half an hour, and meetings are like balloons. They will fill up whatever space they occupy. So that's one of the reasons we experiment with the huddles, right? Is because we set them for 15 minutes. And we will find that we can fill that 15 minutes, and we have to move fast by necessity. So I would challenge you to modify that default framing of a half an hour and schedule a meeting for 15 minutes. And I bet you'll move quick and get to the core elements of what you need to talk about for 15 minutes. And whether that's, it'd be great once we're back in the office on at least some basis and finding out when people are in the office. Because now that we're going to be marking our in-office days, it should be really easy to check to see if someone's in the office and you can actually stop by their desk again, like we used to be able to do in the old days. But as long as we're remote, I encourage you to experiment with meeting times and actually type in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and get what you need to get done in that amount of time. It's always been something that I enjoy doing, is challenging myself to something that I used to schedule for an hour, and I asked myself, could we do this in a half an hour? And I scheduled for half an hour, and I've never regretted that. It usually manages to go faster, more efficiently, and better. Yeah, Emily Bird really likes chats. Chats can work really great. Everyone has I've noticed, a preferred way of communicating. And that's something worth people you collaborate with on a regular basis, is finding out what their preferred channels are, because some people won't respond to email, but they'll respond immediately to chats. Some people never look at their chats, and you could chat them all day long and they'll never notice. So with people you work with on a regular basis, check in on what their preferred form of communication is. It's definitely worth finding out, and it will save you time in the long run. All right. Thank you all for your time today, and I'll look forward to talking to you again in 2 weeks.
Thank you,
Have a great rest of your day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.